There we go. In a
University of the South.
Yeah, from the University of South in Sewanee, Tennessee. As the promotions director for the Central Area Partnership in Greenville, South Carolina, she developed Fall for Greenville, now in its 39th year. She was also the community involvement coordinator for Richland School District 1 in Columbia, South Carolina. In 2004, Susan and her husband Charlie bought a stone cottage on the old swimming hole at Camp Skayuga on White Oak Mountain, North Carolina. When former campers started showing up at their door to reminisce about their memories, Susan realized that the camp story needed to be told. In 2006, she published As We Climb the Mountain, Up the Winding Roadways, Camp Skayuga, 1954 to 1985. Susan has continued to research and explore the other characters and special places that make up the history of the mountain. Susan and her husband Charlie have a blended family with 6 children, 13 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. The best part of living on the mountain has been making memories for their family, especially their grandchildren. Thank you so much for joining us, Susan. We are so honored to have you, and thanks for sharing your book with us.
Well, you were sweet. You were sweet to have me again. You know, we had the real live book signing there in the store for the camp book, and that was a wonderful. And I was so excited when I was in there the other day because I told Lynn I saw my name next to Pat Conroy, so that was really exciting. Maggie, do you know me, or do I know you, or were you a camper, or?
I grew up in Spartanburg, and I now live in Oregon, and I've always loved White Mountain and the whole area, and was just delighted to see a history of it. And so I was very excited to come today.
And you're in Oregon now?
Yes.
Oh, isn't that amazing? That is amazing. Well, do you know about Camp Skayuga, Maggie?
Yes.
Yes. Well, that's really how this all started. Because when we moved here in 2004, all these campers started showing up, and they wanted to see the cabin. They wanted to reminisce about their memories. And so then I got the bright idea that I would ask the Herald Journal to do an article to find campers and counselors, and they did it. And they did a big article, actually. And so all these stories started coming in. But the real turning point was Flo Erickson's daughter. Flo was a long-time employee. Do you remember Flo at the Y?
She was my athletic teacher for.
Oh, was she really? Well, you know her.
Yeah.
And when she died, her daughter put all her Camp Skayuga memorabilia in an envelope and sent it to me. There was no note, there was nothing. It was just, and so when I got it, that was the basis of the book, because all I had was memories, but she sent brochures and little ribbons and, you know, all manner. I even have her whistle on the lanyard.
Oh my heavens!
I have Flo's whistle.
That's not just Camp Skayuga. She used that at the day school too.
Was she? And
yes,
she did.
yes.
And so that's how it kind of started. And then we got that book done, and Lynn, who's on here with us, was a big help with that.
Yeah, I've got to read that next. So sorry.
We got that. We have 2 books now. We have the Camp Skayuga book, and Lynn lives in Spartanburg, but she's one of our neighbors. She has a cabin up here. She comes on the weekends, but she's been a huge help. And so then we got the camp book done, and it just kind of, I kept on going, and started researching the history of the mountain. And you haven't read the book yet, so I focused on the characters. And the story starts in 1887 with Frank Stearns and his brother David and their half-brother Aaron French. They came to North Carolina from Ohio prospecting. They made grindstones, which is a big circle it thing that
Right.
sharpened stuff. That's what they did. They became rich in sandstone. And so they were they'd made their fortune and they were prospecting. And I envisioned them, they opened a mine in Shelby, and I envisioned them seeing the mountain in the distance, because you can see it. You can see it from Shelby. And I envisioned them seeing that mountain and coming over here. And the mountain at the time was a virtual wilderness. There was nothing here. And I'd love to have been here to see how they did it, because they came up here and built not only homes and cottages, but 2 hotels. And they built the Log Cabin Inn, and then they built the Skyuka Hotel. And they Frank called it Spring Mountain Park, the coming sanatorium and Switzerland of America, is how he advertised it. And he bought, before it was all over, he had bought 3,000 acres. And part of it was down in Columbus. It went all over the mountain and then down into Columbus. And he had 3,000 acres. And then he was developing. And then the hotel the other hotel, the Skyuka Hotel, they advertised that as the domain of health and grandeur. And they pitted themselves against Asheville. I thought I had it in here, but they said, you know, we're higher than Asheville, we're cooler than Asheville, we're healthier than Asheville. You know, they did a lot of publicity to get people to come. And as I've learned, not by that time, and we're talking about 1890, early 1890s, some people were getting away from going to fancy places, even though the Skyuka Hotel was very nice. They were more into getting outside and exploring nature. And of course, the big thing about coming up here was the road. You know, they had to get here. And so the big adventure was getting in the horse and buggy and coming up here and fearing for their lives. And one of the people that came, her name was Minnie McFeet. And she was an educator at Winthrop. And she wrote, after she'd been here, she wrote this. Now, you have to kind of follow along to understand what she's saying. But she said, she's talking about the road, nature's royal highway, demonstrating ever that those who gain anything, even pure air and enchanting views, must climb to get there. And she went on and she talked about riding up the road and having no fear. And she said, nature is your friend. She has many sweet surprises for you. And you will lose all fear and surrender unconditionally to her charms. And I have a lot of quotes in here because her words are much more meaningful than mine. And so we did a lot to kind of try to track down the different people who visited. And in the book, there's a small section about some, and you will be so surprised because they came from far and wide. And I guess it was the train that made all this, you know, possible. So, and then I think one of the things that, well, the Log Cabin Inn burned, but I think the invention of the automobile, you know, people didn't like to drive up here and they would overheat and they'd have to stop at the waterfall and put water in there. What do you call heat that radiators, and it just really took away the tourist once people had cars. And of course the fear of coming up the mountain. Even though the roads are now paved, there are people who still are scared to death to drive up here. But we're not, but a lot of people are. So after the Stearns, do you remember the Mimosa Hotel that was down in? Well, the Stearns bought that too. So in the book, we go down the mountain to the Mimosa Inn because they owned it for 30 years. And they had their little fingers in every pie. They were working on the railroads, they were working on the roads, they were working on the tourist industry for this area. And probably their most important contribution that you may or may not know is that Frank Stearns started the first school. He took his own money. He got here and he realized that the opportunities for education were so limited. He started the first school, and they called it the Columbus, let's see, what did they call it? The Columbus, I can't remember the exact term, but excuse me, it was the Central Industrial Institute. And it tickles me today because we have one of the best school districts in North Carolina, and I know that it would be wonderful if he knew that because it grew from his vision and his hard work and his money. So they contributed so much to Polk County, but they're often forgotten. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to write about them, and I have been fortunate enough to connect with some of their family members. They're great nieces, you know, nobody, and none of them know any of this. So we're giving them a gift. They're thrilled because they didn't know it. And they've been so supportive and kind and excited about the book. And then we leave them and we go on to the rest of the people who came. And there were the Chicago people. I have a whole chapter about the Chicago people. Again, very wealthy, well-to-do, well-educated people that were up here. And then my favorite, I don't know, Lynn, do you have a favorite chapter? Lynn, do you have a favorite chapter? I can't hear.
Okay. You know who my favorite is.
Is it Fanny?
Yeah. I love Fanny. She fascinates me.
Fanny Ricks. Do you know anything about her, Maggie? Have you heard her?
I've heard the name. So
Ricks
I was really close to Marty Copenhaver, whose aunts ran Oak Hall. So
okay. Okay. Yes.
She taught with my mom. My mom taught at the day school. So so I've heard of Fanny Ricks, but I don't know her story.
Well, you'll love her story. She was very wealthy. When her husband died, she was in Mississippi. He was one of the biggest planters in Mississippi. When he died, she went to Washington, D.C., where she was the belle of the ball. And she went to State House dinners, but she also did things for people. Let me point that out. She didn't just spend her money on herself, but she started going deaf. And so she couldn't socialize like she used to, and it was difficult for her. So she decided to change her life. And she was from, where was she from? Charlotte. She was actually from Charlotte. So she knew about the mountains of North Carolina. Yeah. And she and her best friend came here. This was around 1903. And they got a guide and they rode all over White Oak Mountain and Tryon. They called it Tryon Mountain. All the early references are Tryon Mountain. Yeah. And she ended up buying 1,700 acres and put it under fence. She had all these animals. She had this gorgeous house which nobody's ever seen in this when it was beautiful. And we have the picture. We found Fanny's cousin, and he shared with us the pictures of Rick's Haven. So now everybody can see what it really looked like. And she came with her companion. She was really, I wouldn't call her a maid, but she did, she worked for her, but they were still close. And her name was Lizzie Burkhart, and she came. And lo and behold, in 1918, the story goes that they drank some cow's milk, that the cows had eaten snakeweed, and apparently that is poisonous. And so they both died at Rick's Haven. And but she was just before her time.
Mm-hmm.
So can you imagine coming up here and building this? It's and you'll love. I mean, she's my favorite too. Yeah. And her cousin George, who I've never met, he's in New York City, but we've corresponded and stuff. And he sent me. I don't know if you can see this or not, but he sent me a sterling silver ladle that belonged to Fanny when she was in Washington, D.C., and it has her initials on the handle. And it was made by the same people who made the silverware for the White House.
Yeah.
So we have this now.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Which was just a wonderful surprise.
Yeah.
And Lynn, do you want to say something else about Fanny?
She was in her 60s and was exploring the mountains and camping on the mountain in her 60s, this rich woman, and I love it.
That's cool. That's just great.
Yeah.
Which chapter is she?
And so much akin to Try on Spirit and Salute the Spirit and everything, They're just, oh, that's wonderful.
Well, she was quite something, and it's been such a blessing for me to show these pictures to the natives, because there are only maybe one person left that ever went there when it was beautiful. It burned down in the 70s or 80s. Sometime it burned down, and it's just been a ruin ever since. And so most people have not seen what it was really like, and it was beautiful. And then, Lynn, do you have a second favorite character?
I don't know. I'd have to think. Well, I loved Mr. Stearns and his car. I mean, that's just crazy. He invented a car.
Yes, Miss Frank. Back to the Stearns. They were all
and a boat.
What?
And a boat too.
Oh yeah, he did a boat too. And that's all in here just because it's so interesting to me personally now that I've gotten to know the family. But Frank, the father who came here and built the hotels and all that, his son developed an automobile, which is a collector's item today, called the Stearns Knight. And you can go on eBay and see the brochures and the average, it's still for collectors.
Oh,
it was like the fastest car of that age, which was the early 1900s. And then when he got through with that, he built a big boat. So they were very, they were very adventuresome. They were I don't think they were educated.
Right.
And another thing about them that I need to say is that when reading about the Gilded Age, which was a part of this, the things I've read said that a lot of people took their money and just made more money.
Right.
They didn't have a heart for others, and the Stearns did. And I'm so proud. When Frank Stearns came here, he had moved to Euclid Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio, which was the richest street in America at that time. John D. Rockefeller was on that street, and Carnegie
I was
and
going to
all
say
these,
Carnegie must have, yeah.
yes, all those people you would know were on that street. And I'm not saying they weren't philanthropic either, but I'm just saying that generally the literature I've read has said that,
Yeah.
that so many of them just made money to make money.
Yeah.
And the Stearns used theirs to found a school and
Yeah.
help
And
others.
and it's cool that they were inventors and did stuff. It reminds me, and we're in different industries and we're so diversified. It's sort of what comes to mind to me is captain of industry. I mean, they were just when industry was a whole new,
Yes,
you know,
they
it was a new
were.
frontier, and it was
Yes,
a
they
new
were.
adventure. They were adventurers. It just,
But they didn't have any, and they came from nothing.
Right.
They came from nothing. They weren't born into this. They
Yeah.
came from absolutely nothing. And so my other favorite person is, you may have heard this too, since you have connections to the area, is Grace Coolidge.
Oh yes.
Grace, her neighbor and friend, Florence Adams' family was here on White Oak Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
The first person being Uncle Otto. And when he died, Florence inherited some land and she built a house there. And so just a few months after Calvin Coolidge died, Grace was here. And this became her, I mean, it was, nobody bothered her.
Yeah.
You know, she was surrounded by nature. They would come and stay for months at a time. And they would hike all over this mountain. They would hike to Rixhaven. And we do have one person that's still alive, Howard Williams. His parents were caretakers at the hotel, at Speight Hotel. And he was like 8. And they would come by the hotel, Florence and Grace, to get water on the way to Rixhaven. And so Howard got to meet him, and he was just so amazed how she was just a normal person.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was a normal person. And, but their friendship, again, that to me is so interesting because it was the most unlikely of friendships. Because Florrie, was a divorcee in the 30s. And she was very well educated. She was a staunch Democrat. She was very outspoken about her political opinions. And of course, Grace was a Republican and very quiet because Calvin never let her speak. And he didn't. And so this was like a rebirth for Grace Coolidge coming here. And I mean, and she says in her books, Grace says, Florence would do anything, you know, and they went to Europe, they got a car, a convertible, they named it Oliver, and they drove all over Europe. And when you drive to where their house was up here now,
Mm-hmm.
Lynn, it's kind of treacherous even now.
Yeah.
And they would drive up. I mean, they had a caretaker here, and he would bring the car down to the train station, and sometimes they drove. And they drove from Northampton, Massachusetts, and they said with Florrie driving at high speeds and Grace holding on for dear life. And they just had a ball, but they loved it here. She loved it here, and this gave her so much solace after her husband died. Here's Zoe.
Yes.
Oh,
So
that's
that
great.
I think she's. Go ahead.
I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say, was this just one adventure after another for you, finding out all these and exploring all these different people?
Yes. Yes. It has been like a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
it's just been so much fun.
Was most of your research talking to people, or was it like looking through documents and stuff? How did you do that?
Both.
Okay.
Both. But when I started this a million years ago, it couldn't have happened then. People say, well, how long did it take? Well, if I had tried to finish this 12 years ago, the resources that are here now weren't available. And as far as local information, there is a free site called Digital, you may know about it, Jackie, Digital NC. And they are archiving all the old North Carolina newspapers. So without that, and then of course I subscribe to newspapers.com and ancestry.com.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would find, like I found this picture on ancestry.com of the Stearns at the Mimosa Inn. Now this has been like 8 years ago.
See if I can find
I could not find out where that picture came from.
Mhm.
It took 8 years, and then one day, I'm constantly Googling, and there came the book that it was in. The picture was in.
Is it this picture?
That's the picture right there.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
it's that picture.
That is so cool.
And that's how I met the people. I met 4 Stearns family members, and the 3 of them, one of them's father wrote the book that picture was in. And so she sent me the book, and then she connected me to the other 2 great nieces that now I can see. I mean, they even prayed for me while I was writing the book. It's been it's been kind of it's been personal. A lot of it's been personal.
Was this
Tell them about your granddaddy.
Oh yeah, that was another find. You know, we're all connected.
Yeah.
And here you are out there in Oregon, and your mother was, you know, friends with the lady at Oak Hall. But I was just Googling one night in newspaper.com, and up came this thing that said David Stearns bought the plans for the Skyuka Hotel from George Barber. Well, George Barber is my great-grandfather.
Oh my
So
goodness.
he was a famous Victorian architect. And so
Oh my goodness. Now, was he in Knoxville?
yeah, he was in Knoxville. And it just blows your mind. It just, how we're it's all connected. And, but yes, I did a lot of Googling. I would say I can't even tell you how much time I spent on the internet. Most people were very kind, but there were a few who didn't want to talk. I mean, I found some people that I needed to find, but they didn't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
And one lady hung up on me. That only happened one time. Most people were very forthcoming. So there are a few little holes in the stories that we can't fill because nobody would tell us anything.
Yeah.
But you remember Shunkawalken Falls,
Mm-hmm.
the big waterfall on the mountain. Well,
Yeah.
one of the things we found out was where that name came from. And originally, Shunkawalken Falls was Horse Creek Falls. And when Frank Stearns came and started developing the mountain, he must have decided we needed a sexier name for the waterfall. And long story short, we found out that Shunkawalken is Lakota Indian for horse. It was originally Horse Creek Falls. It was Horse Creek Falls, and he renamed it Shunkawalken, which means horse.
Far better for marketing purposes. He had a real knack for marketing and how he characterized.
And one of my greatest disappointments, I know that there were I have a fabulous brochure of the Mimosa Inn, but there were brochures for the Log Cabin Inn and for the Skyuka Hotel, because you can write to get them in their ads. but nobody, we have not been able to turn up any brochures. We have ads, but we can't find any early or any kind of interior.
Right.
I mean, that would be that would just be beyond exciting, but that didn't happen. So
Well, I have another question, Susan. Since you were talking about your favorite characters, and now you're talking about writing and like interviewing people, who was your favorite interviewer? Like, what was your favorite section to actually write? Got to think about that one.
Probably Fanny.
Okay.
Oh, well, I had help with it. I had help with Fanny. A new friend, she wanted to help with the book, and so she worked on some stuff for Fanny. But I found George, and when I found George, her cousin, it was all over. You know, that's when it really it came together then. And in fact, he sent me a new picture that didn't make the book, and I just got it this week. And it's Fanny with her husband, which we didn't have any pictures of Fanny with her husband. And he sent it to me this week, and I've had somebody, touch it up. And
Wow.
and another thing funny about Fanny, they kept talking about the fact that she wasn't very attractive. Now, she just looked like an ordinary person. She did, in the pictures we have, but the family made kind of a big deal about the fact that she wasn't, and she was self-conscious about that. And so when her husband died, going back now, she gave $20,000 to Yazoo City, Mississippi, to have a library built in her husband's memory, which is still there. It's the oldest public library in Mississippi. And of course, they had a portrait of her husband, General Ricks, they called him. Then they decided they wanted a portrait of Fanny. So she's having her portrait done, and she's not happy with her hairdo. And so she sees this lady on the street going by with a hairdo that she liked. And so they solicited her, and she came in, and the painter artist did that lady's hair on Fanny's head. That's how vain she was. She was a character. And what else? Any more questions? I've talked a lot. We're running out of time.
You're doing great. How did you pick who to write about?
They kind of selected themselves.
Okay.
Because, I mean, obviously the Stearns were the starting point.
Yeah.
Because they developed the mountain. They were the first people to develop the mountain, and their house that they built is still here. It's the oldest house on the mountain, and it's just been restored, and it is beautiful. But I'd heard a lot about Fanny. Everybody in Polk County knows about Fanny, and all the young people would, go up there at night and scare themselves to death, long after Fanny was gone. But, that was like one of the big things that kids would do. And she was obvious. And then Howard Williams, who's in the book, he's the one that was a young boy when he gave water to Florence and Grace Coolidge. And if you ask anybody in Polk County for references or resources, everybody says Howard. Everybody says Howard. So that's how I got to Howard, because everybody said you have to talk to Howard. Now, whether Howard is truthful or not, we don't know. He's 93. He's 93 now, but some of his tales are in here. And then Slick Rock was the second oldest. Have you heard of that? The Dodge House. A lot of people call it the Dodge House. It was the second oldest house on the mountain, and it's still here. So that was a natural
Yeah.
you know, it was natural to go there. And we were very fortunate to get a lot of pictures from that family. So that was very exciting because most people have not seen those pictures before. And, you know, we talk about the waterfall and the Sunset Rock and Camp Skyuka. We have it because it's about the characters, and certainly Evans Cannon was a character, and he was very much a part of the mountain for many, many, many years. So we have him in here, and it's just been an exciting journey for me, and Lynn has helped.
It's lovely watching your face talk about it because you obviously, I think you just the fun and the love. I know that it wasn't always easy, and I know there must have been times of frustration, but it just resonates, you know, and that's wonderful. I can't wait to read it. Even though Jackie has me reading 45 other things, you know, Jackie has taken over my life. I told Betsy. I
moved my boat to the top.
I found an old picture of me and Betsy from our Girl Ranger. Betsy.
Sorry, Maggie, your internet popped in and out.
And I knew John before Betsy knew John. Yeah, because he was one of my dad's students, so he was always over at my house. But I told Betsy that you're keeping me way too busy.
Well, it's interesting because when you said you don't know Ken Winter, do you? Because he lives in Oregon too, and he was a camper, and I sent a book out there to him. And so when you said you were from Oregon, I thought, well, gee.
Yeah.
But
we
yeah,
just moved here, this about a year ago.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, this is retirement home. Unless I move to Tryon, that's the other option.
Move to where?
Tryon.
Okay. See, I grew up in Columbus, so I love the whole idea.
Oh, did you? You didn't kept that a secret. You didn't tell me that.
I love Columbus too. It's a wonderful town.
You didn't tell me.
Did the Stearns develop Columbus? I mean, did they get involved?
Well, when they did a lot. When you see the book, and it's hard to.
Yeah.
The map is so old, you can hardly see it, but it's in the book. And the map that he did goes all the way down into Peak Street. And I mean, it goes all the way down into Columbus. And he's laid out all the streets and everything. But I'm not knowledgeable about what all he actually did other than the school and the mountain, but he certainly.
Well, that's just amazing.
And he just, the whole family is just extraordinary, in my opinion. It's an extraordinary family. And it's just been so thrilling to get to know them, to really know them.
Yes. Oh God, it's just got to be amazing. You got to feel like they're actually your friends, like you know them if they walked out.
They are. I mean, one of them wrote me today, bless her heart, she's in her 80s, and she is in a high-rise in New York City. And she has been sequestered there with COVID all this time. And so that gave her time to go through the family albums. And so she was able to give me some pictures of some people that I didn't have. So we became, I mean, she wrote me today to tell me about her doctor's appointment. And so I do. I feel like they're lifelong. And my dream, my really, really, really dream, and COVID prevented this, was to have them all here for the book signing at the museum. I wanted to have well, one of the Stearns ladies has died, but the 3 living Stearns ladies and Fanny's cousin, I wanted to have them here for the book signing, but
they couldn't.
Couldn't travel. So
well, this is made for such strange times and such strange. I mean, I wouldn't get to do these things with Hub City if it wasn't for COVID. So
right. We're delighted to meet you and hope you'll come see us when you come back.
Oh, I will come back. I have a house to sell and empty. My
We'll
parents'
give
house.
you the tour. We'll give you the tour of the mountain.
Oh, I'd love to do that. That would be just lovely. I loved riding around the mountain with Marty. Whenever I'd go visit her, we'd get in the car, go careening around the mountain.
Well, and Howard says, and I don't know, Howard Williams, my 92-year-old buddy, he says that the rock that we all call Sunset Rock is really not Sunset Rock. It is Shaky Rock. And that Sunset Rock is over to the left. And when you look at this vintage picture I found of somebody standing on Sunset Rock, it really does look like the place that Howard has pointed out. But, there's no way to really verify that, but it does look that way. But it's strange to me that there's just not much. Oh, but they even built a golf course. Again, ahead of their times. When they bought the Mimosa Inn, they go over to Skyuka Road and build a golf course, a 9-hole golf course. This was before Tryon Country Club.
Yeah. Oh,
So, I mean, they just, it was just like they dream up stuff and do it.
Can you talk a little bit about the pictures, Susan? The images that you have in there are just gorgeous. And actually, they look like coffee table book pictures, and it looks like you did a lot of work restoring the images. How did you do that? Did you find them online and you had to contact the owner?
Well, here's another really exciting thing. The cover.
Mm-hmm.
I had several things that I don't know. I don't know if she can.
I'll show it so you can talk.
I saw it.
You hold it up.
Yeah, I saw it on the.
Well, I had several
beautiful
ideas for the cover, but sometime this summer I was Googling, and all of a sudden this picture popped up, and it was of Tryon Mountain, oil painting, 1920, by a lady who was from Michigan, but she had to have been visiting, or came through, and she did this painting. So I said, that really looks like it should be the cover. And I called a friend of mine here that does fine art to ask him, where could I go and get this? How would I get this? How would I get permission to use this? He said, well, I have the original. So there it was.
Wow.
He had the original picture. And so we took it over to Chris Bartol. He's you know who that is? He's retired now, but he was kind enough to do some things for me. And he took the picture of the original painting. And some of them, they're right inside the book is that picture of the Skyuka Hotel, which is really an important picture because most people have never seen that on page right before the contents.
Yeah.
And somebody kind of reframed it so it would fit where I wanted it to fit. And then Chris Bartow colorized it for me.
That's gorgeous.
And you have a whole lovely description under it too.
Yes. And that was another great find. And again, you really do have to be persistent. In the Googling, I found that picture, and it wasn't a picture. It was a note in the Ramsey Library in UNC Asheville. They have some old pictures. But when it came to, when it said Skyuka Hotel, it was blank. And it said that it was on a plate. It was somehow on a plate. They had developed it.
Right.
So we charge up there and sure enough, we were able to get the picture off the plate. So, and then somebody fixed it for me, and then we colorized. Somebody else colorized it so you could really see it. So every
Oh, you must
picture.
have just been so excited. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine how excited you were.
Well, Lynn knows because I would bother her. Look what I found. Come on down. I want to show you what I have now. Because everything was it was like a treasure. It was like a treasure hunt. And the most exciting to me about it for the community is that we have things that nobody's seen before.
Yes.
That makes it.
And that you've got it together and that people can see it and preserve it and share it. It's just.
And I'm not an author, and I am not a historian. And I don't know if I said this in the beginning or not, but it was kind of like an assignment.
It looks like you're an author and a historian now.
No, not really. No, I know it might look that way, but it was an assignment. It was an assignment. It was just what I was supposed to do, and I did it with lots of help.
Sounds like it was a mission. It took way too long for an assignment, and you know.
It was a mission.
Yeah. It was, and we had a lot of interruptions. You know how life happens, and we go years and not work on it.
And it's and you could just tell that Lynn just loved every moment of work, you know, being a part of this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
She bless her heart. She had to take pictures, and she does things I don't know how to do, and she did it graciously every time for both books. And her husband even drew a map of the Camp Skyuka for us, so that's in the other book. So, oh, and this show the picture on page 33, Jackie.
Sure.
That was the
oh, that's beautiful. So colorful.
that.
Oh my Lord.
That's the Skyuka Hotel, and I got a local artist.
Okay.
And to try to bring that back because there were so few pictures.
Yeah.
I know her.
So she did that picture.
Marie King? I know her. Yeah, I know her. That's so awesome. I have to ask her about that.
Yes, oh yes, and Marie King, and she worked so hard to try to get it right, and I had originally thought about this for the cover, but then when the one that showed up did, I knew that was it. So I hope she wasn't too disappointed.
Oh, I'm sure she was thrilled to help you out.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other one is the cover. It's definitely.
Yeah, it was the cover. It was the cover, and it just, there it was. So I can really say to anybody who would endeavor to do such a thing is the constant Googling, because new things are added all the time. You know, if it wasn't there yesterday, it might be there 2 weeks from now. Just like that picture of the Stearns. 8 years later, I got the book and met the family too. So
your patience and devotion to this project is incredible. I just wanted to say that.
What?
I said your patience and devotion to this project is incredible.
Well, COVID helped a lot.
Are you working on any other ones, or was this like your crowning book?
No, but George Bean, Fanny's cousin, he did venture out that maybe I should develop her story even more.
Yeah.
Oh.
He did. But I said, George, I'm through. But then I thought about it, maybe we'll see.
You need a project.
I think Charlie's tired of me doing this project. But we've had fun, haven't we, Lynn? Thank you. You've just been wonderful. And Maggie, I'm so glad you came. What fun.
Oh, I am so glad I came, and I'm so glad that through Hub City I got to connect with the existence of this book, and I'm just so excited to read it. I just can't, you know, I just
You'll
just
enjoy
can't.
it. And in my card will be, no, I don't think I don't know if I put, did I put cards? Yes, I did. So it's got my contact information, so you can, if you've got
Awesome.
questions or
Thank you.
anything.
Well, once one is able to travel safely, I will be in the area again. I
Good,
will look you up for sure.
good. That would be great. We'd love to give you a tour.
It
So
would be
Maggie, who were your parents? You said they were teachers?
Yeah, my mother taught at the day school for 30 some odd years. Her name is Virginia Miller. And my dad taught at Wofford for 30 some odd years, 40 some odd years, and his name was Vincent Miller. And we lived in Converse Heights. That's where I grew up.
She does too.
That's where I am.
Yep. Okay, so what street? Because I have to know, because it takes me back there. Like I walk the street in my mind when somebody mentions it.
We're on Boyd Street, right?
Oh, I love Boyd Street.
A block from Pine Street School.
Yes. Yeah, I love Boyd Street. We're on Palmetto.
Oh, okay.
That's where I grew up. So
Okay,
yeah.
we're all connected.
And for a while, long after I was gone, Betsy and John had lived next door to my parents.
Oh,
I mean,
I went to high school with John.
before that, yeah. John was one of my dad's favorite students of all time. So
Oh.
he was kind of in his college years hung out at my house. Moved next door. Yeah.
Well, Jackie, you kept the biggest secret. Because all through all this, she never told me she was from Polk County.
Isn't that
I lived there from
Thank you.
I was 14 till the time I was 23. So not my whole youth, but
Okay, that's your whole youth.
the rest of it was in like Clemson, South Carolina.
Oh, we know that well.
Yeah.
Yes, we
So
do.
I was familiar with Polk County before we moved there, but being a teenager there was wonderful. I loved it.
Was it really?
Yeah.
That's great. That's
We had
great.
horses and stuff. It's
Oh,
perfect.
yes, yes. Well, thank you, ladies. This has been a great treat for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Susan, for joining us. I love how we could have like a little conversation the whole time. That was really, really special.
That was very special. Thank you. That was just an absolute treat.
Well, for me too. And Lynn had to hear it all again, but she's a good sport.
Well, she's your partner in crime, so.
Well, thank you for this wonderful book, Susan. And if anybody wants a copy, we still have several signed, beautiful copies at the shop.
That's great.
We'll say goodnight for tonight. Thank you again, Susan.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Take care.
Bye, everyone. It was
Bye.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.